Okay, great. So, if you'd like to just introduce yourself, start at this end and go to the end, and just your roles within the films we've just watched, please.
My name is Marc Green, I'm director and producer of the Untitled Chapter Trilogy.
I'm Lucy Nordberg, writer and co-producer of the Untitled Trilogy.
Hi, I'm Mika Simmons, and I'm the writer and director of Breach.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for joining us. So, Mika, first of all, where did the idea come from for your film?
So, Breach, the story of Breach was actually not my idea. This is my second short film, and my first was nominated for a £1 million prize in a festival, and we all had to make another film based on a story told by someone else. So the story wasn't mine, and yeah, it was. I had to shoot it in a day, so I knew that I needed to make something that was quite contained and one location, and that I needed to take the story they'd given me, which was a caper. It was a caper that had lots of different locations, and actually they'd given us 3 months to make this film, but as would be my producers want, it took them forever to decide whether or not they actually wanted to do it. So so we shot it in a day and took the essence of the story. So the idea of the film, I think, was mine, but the story's not mine.
I was going to ask about actually the location, so a lot of it takes place in a vehicle. So
Yeah.
What was the main challenge in that really confined space? How did you work with that?
I mean, the perspective was really hard, but I actually I wrote it set on a kind of like in an inner city. It was supposed to be outside some shops and kind of have a much more gritty gang-like feel to it. And the week before, we got told we didn't have our location cleared. So I had to rewrite it to shoot it in the middle of nowhere and turn it into a bit more of a kind of a bleak landscape thriller. And I mean, even so, it would have still been in the car. I think actually I really enjoyed, I stole the idea of the car from a film that had won something a couple of years ago that I saw at the BFI. And I really enjoyed the constraints of it. I was very lucky in that the people who I brought in, the team that I brought in to do production on it, actually usually make music videos. So they have more than one camera. So we actually just put cameras on the car from different angles. And I think if I'd have only had one camera, I think if that hadn't have been how it played out, I actually wouldn't have had a film. And I only learnt that kind of on the day. In a way, in my head, I was like, we'll be fine and we'll have enough time to move around and get different angles and shots. Because we shot it in one day, and it was from night to day, as the dawn came up. Obviously, I only had the pocket. It was in February, so we had a very short daylight day. And obviously, you can't start filming earlier than, I guess we started at 6. So I feel really lucky that the people that we landed with had more than one camera and could shoot it like that inside the car and through the windows. And then the most difficult thing was, I suppose, that when Jolie, quite early on, with Jolie in the front seat, who plays Bonnie, if she moved like slightly like this, then she went kind of cross-eyed because of the angle of the camera, and it was just such a baptism of fire for me, because when I'm an actor and the director says, could you just be there because it's better for the shot, I'm always like, no, I just need to be, I'm not, but I think there's an ongoing kind of conflict between the director's gaze and trying to get the best shot and the film visually that the director wants, and then the actors needing to find what feels right for them. And Jolie, they were very accommodating. She was very accommodating, but then when Ray got into the car, Ray Fearon, who plays her kind of like psychic, I could just tell that together they were a bit miffed that I was kind of making them sit like this in the middle, so they didn't go fish-eyed, So I think actually on the day that was my biggest challenge was needing to make my actors uncomfortable in order to get the shot, and I felt really uncomfortable about that.
Great answer. Lucy, so you're the writer. Am I correct in thinking you wrote all 3
Yes, that's right.
sections? Okay, so where did the idea to make a trilogy, was that always from the beginning?
Not really, it kind of formed as we went, because Marc and I formed a company, Moving Pictures Theatre, to sort of make classic or classic-inspired work, but sort of modern, so in interesting locations. So we always wanted to do some film poems to test out, you know, filming, actors' performances and things. So we always knew they could be sort of put one with the other, but how it works. Because originally it was going to be 4, yeah, that's right. So we got another one which we actually filmed in VR in 360.
So that was going to be too much for everybody.
Yeah, we couldn't do it for, yeah, exactly. Also, yeah, time and tide. There was no sea in it. There was time, a lot of time, but no sea at all. So we couldn't put that one in. So yeah, they all fitted together quite nicely when we finished them. So we thought they worked, and they seemed to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like you have the morning with Marc had the sort of vision for how they'd be filmed, as you have the more sort of morning feel with Greta, then an afternoon feel with the Lighthouse Keeper, and then at night Homecoming. So that's how it all fitted together as a trilogy, I guess. Because I come from a theatre background, and I sort of write modern iambic pentameter and other poetry as well, write other stuff as well. But so that's why we sort of thought this was a good thing to just start with, to make something hopefully quite epic and cinematic out of something that's actually just a person in front of the camera, but just give a feel of the world, build that up.
Was there any chance that, Marc, you were going to do all 3, or were you always intending to get each part to a different director? How did
Well,
that work?
actually, Marc comes from a photography and art background, so his vision for all 3 was followed by the directors.
They brought their own.
They brought their take to it, but yeah.
Especially Jonathan at the end.
Jonathan, so yeah. Oh yeah, that
The
was
sound
great.
was very much more epic
Mm.
than the other 2, because it's supposed to have a kind of nice nostalgic feel. If you think of Jack and Ori there, it's a kind of just extending that kind of situation. And with Jonathan, we'd always wanted to work on him with the bigger productions we have in mind, full features. And just to test when we asked him to come back and integrate. We brought this whole team down, we put the old anamorphics out, and the whole stage was covered in equipment. And there was a whole, evening before setting it all up. And then just gone through the shooting. Sam, the actor's only coming in for the day. Greta in the first one, she's like 2.5 hours in shooting the English version and the Italian version. And she had no rehearsals.
Because we were right in the middle of COVID.
The COVID situation was the problem for us. But then Sam as well, he only had a day to do it, and we saw him with that. John at the end, we had a bit longer with him, but it was great. And it's just about fitting the visuals and the theme and the feel of it around the words. The key important thing was the words to come across.
Yeah.
So build up a nice little intro, and that's it. It's nice and simple.
How did you cast the trilogy?
Well, with working with the casting director, we just had a watch a lot of stuff and see a lot of actors on like Greta, what was like her, love her voice, read a few other books. And we really liked it. Because in fact, if it wasn't for the COVID situation, we probably would have had a harder time. The theatre, we got to work in there for a couple of days.
Again, that's a good test, because like John Baldock, who runs the theatre role, because he wanted to do other film theatre things in there. And then he was always interested in the idea of film and theatre, because he used to work at, I can't remember, I think he used to work at BFI. But yeah, so he let us have the theatre while it was dark. So it was quite a moving experience for them, because of COVID. A couple of our runners actually one of our runners is actually the actress in the Mirror film, another one, the 361, but the runners were normally worked at the theatre. So
and you see Sam in between, when we're trying to fix the scene. Sam just wandering around and thinking, while he's actually on the stage.
Yeah, because he
we
was
just glad to be back.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think John Locke was the first actor we cast, and Do you know what? Because
I think we can.
I can't even remember, because I don't. It might have been his casting director for that, Peter Mantle, could have got in touch with him for good local actors in Brighton who'd also done things beyond. But he's a great champion of independent film, and he's been extremely helpful from the beginning. And then with that location, which was the Lightship in Gravesend, that was just happened to be a friend of the guy who did some 360 filming for us for that. Happened to have it. So yeah, it was just about testing out
We've never
the
filmed
actors
before.
and yeah.
There's all talk and all theory about what we need to do. We had our websites done, productions, big productions are ready to go, and the theatrical ones that people go to cinemas, but we needed to actually film something to show we can do it, and we can do something small, just to show we've got it to do it. The idea was also to follow that theme of what we want to do the bigger productions, to show that's what's going to happen.
Right.
So that was the sense behind it.
Is there any burning questions in the audience at this point?
How did you get your cast involved in your film?
Well, I suppose because I work as an actor, I'm connected with actors, and actually Jodie had seen my first film and asked if she could work with me, and so when I wrote this, I just sent it to her, and she suggested Ray Fearon. I know Ray and I like his work, but I probably wouldn't have cast him. He wasn't quite how I perceived it, but I sort of did feel that if Jodie asked for Ray, then I should cast Ray. I wasn't for arguing. I just felt so lucky that she was going to be in it. And Camilla Rutherford, who plays the vet, is one of my favourite actresses. I think that she's just got such a unique, slightly quirky, independent film darling, and we had the same agent at the time, so again I just offered it to her. I've actually just, the film that I've just done, the first time I've worked with a casting director, and I really enjoyed it, but my first two I just begged.
You mentioned earlier on about doing that whole sort of like weird transition of going, use the pun, against the grain, being as we've just shown it. Was there anything else that sticks in your mind that you've gone from the actor and the actor to the director, and you're asking an actor to do something different than what you would like to have been asked? Was there anything else that sticks in your mind other than that incident?
No, I would just say that in general, as an actor, I've worked a lot in film schools, helping, I suppose. I mean, I get paid for it, but a lot of the film schools over the years, I've been a body to help teach young directors how to work with actors. So I've had the privilege, I suppose, of being in a workshop environment, but receiving quite a lot of the vocabulary that the textbooks suggest a director should use to work with an actor. And so I've really enjoyed that experience, and the reason that I ended up directing is my first short film, Rain Stops Play. I actually asked an actress called Tara Fitzgerald to be in it, and she said that she would only be in it if I directed it. So I hadn't planned to. I'm really enjoying it, but I had not planned to become a director. It's been, to use it again, a real baptism of fire, and I guess the biggest lesson for me has been that some of that stuff that gets taught in film school is just not possible on set when you're against the clock. I mean, the film that I've just directed has got Joanna Lumley in it, and she just said, just give me a line reading. Mika, just tell me how you want me to say it. And it's like, there's all the stuff that they teach you shouldn't do, and I do feel that it's good that we're teaching young directors how to be with actors and pull a performance out of an actor and allow an actor to be to find it from inside, rather than just, because I think it's important that you have that training, so that you don't just ambush an actor on set and sort of say, stand there, do this, and say it this way. However, I think it's a bit deluded. I don't actually think that there's time when you're actually making a film, and it's yeah. So I guess it's more of an overall lesson rather than a specific. Just that I think that every situation is incredibly unique, and that you have to find a vocabulary that for you to work with that human being, and a dialogue, so that you can actually work with them, and that there aren't really any rules.
Hi. How much do your films actually cost to make?
For us, about it was like 25 quid. No, it's
Light Housekeeper, I'm trying to think, do we say, I don't know what we say, Light Housekeeper, well, the location was free, John was a day's work. I won't give away how much because that's his thing, but it wasn't very much at all because he did it as a sort of almost a favour. And then it was just lunch for everybody. Alex was working with Mark getting the filming down. They were just doing it for fun.
I think if you take into account that everybody was doing it just off pat, but if they were getting paid, you'd be talking
Quite a lot,
around about
yeah.
10,000 probably for that.
Yeah, and then
That would be keeping it cheap.
and then with the arena, we had the only people on set was Greta,
Was only
you,
five
me,
of
the assistant producer Justin Hillier. So really, that was just Greta, but she was very nice. She brought us lunch afterwards.
She was, right.
Actually, funnily enough, of all the locations, yeah, it was the beach that was the most expensive because Homecoming. That was more expensive because, we did pay everybody, but it wasn't that much. Again, it was mainly day of work for Sam, wasn't it? And then we got given the theatre. I mean, the theatre for a couple of days would otherwise be a lot. But so I think, we were really trying to get as epic as we could by spending hardly anything. And I mean, we'll have to go back actually and look through all the spreadsheets and work that out because when we put in for funding, we want to get funded for things going forward, obviously we'll have to work out realistically. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we'll have to sort of realistically see how it would have been if we'd had to go in and actually get.
The Homecoming was the one we spent the most money.
Yeah.
We were talking, considering the discounts everybody gave, the time and.
I think it was about £5,000, wasn't it?
£5,000 just for that, and obviously taking the full costs, it would have been 3-4 times more.
Yeah.
Same question to Mika.
Oh yeah, it's just under 8,000, and that's our final figure. Yeah, and we paid everyone. Everyone pretty much got paid a similar rate. Everyone that worked on it. I think one person didn't get paid. We had one very junior runner who was desperate to come and but everyone got paid. Yeah.
My question is for Marc and Lucy. When you block a monologue like that, who's leading that process? Is that something you're watching the actors and responding to, or is that the director or the cinematographer?
We all worked on it together at the beginning. Then we give the brief to the director at that time. And Lucy and I worked closely in that point at the beginning, well, even just when we were talking about the project. We kept it really simple, as you saw. The Homecoming was the most complicated one, if you can call it that, because there was more to it. The other two, you saw the two of them just sitting there. Lighthouse to be John was just following him along, so it's very straightforward in that respect. Jonathan Stowe, he's done a lot of big productions, so we left it to him. We gave him an idea and a brief of what we wanted. He added the bit with the sea at the beginning, a lot of the shots, going through the corridor, all these kind of things. The ideas we given him, but he just developed it and he did all the booking and all that kind of thing for that. So
And it's also, I think we were looking, when we were sort of thinking about casting, at sort of seeing similar things that the actors had done, so we kind of knew that the performance that they would instinctively bring to it was what we kind of wanted, if you know what I mean, like with the emotion that Greta had and her ability to just, like, with micro expressions. Obviously it would be directed, but Mark had from the very idea, have her sitting like that on the, all that sort of thing. So it was just sort of thinking of how to be framed, and then they're acting within that kind of,
before we got everybody else involved, and then we give them the brief and the ideas that we have, and see what they can come up with. We do like to collaborate.
Actually, Greta.
Some of the actors, you want to actually work with them. As Mika was saying, you want to be able to bond and work. And let them have some freedom. They need to express themselves as well, because often not they can bring something new to actually that we might not see. And it's the other way around as well. They might be fixed on something, but give them a chance to have a couple of takes, and then you can say, what about this, what about that? It's just the usual stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask all three of you what's next. What are your future plans?
Hi, I've just directed a short. It's the first thing that I've directed that I didn't write, so that was interesting. And it's another kind of like sad but romantic-y comedy, and it's called My Week with Maisie. And it's written by an actor called Mark Oxby, who's currently the understudy to Doc in the West End version of Back to the Future, which I highly recommend, and if you can see him in it, I would. But he's not in the film. It's Joanna Lumley and a little girl called Ellie Mae Sam, and it's actually a cancer story. And I've tried to make something that's got a little sprinkling of kind of magic realism in it, so I've gone even more heightened in terms of the set and the slight quirkiness of it, which is something that seems to be coming through a little bit in the work that I'm doing. So that's in the edit at the moment, which is always a really interesting, yeah. And then I'm auditioning for lots and lots of jobs that I'm not getting at the moment, but I will.
We're looking at doing a bigger production. We're also investigating 360 filming.
Yeah, because we've done a workshop of a 360 full-length thing that we'd like to film in both 360 and as a standard film. So we tested out the first scene of that, which we've got a sort of residency at a place called Viewsbox in Brighton, where we could test out with, they let you use it with 360 cameras and everything. So we tested that out. So we're working on that.
Taking a play and putting it into different sections just to break it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, ideally we'd be doing some bigger production films to put out there in the cinema.
Yeah, we've got another short from this has just gone out as a 360 production. We're started putting that into festivals just
Lots of
this week.
things
Just
that need
finished,
money.
and then yeah, and then we got a sort of slate of films that we'd like to do with a sort of classic inspired work in interesting locations. So yeah.
Okay, great. That's an excellent part to end on. Thank you so much for joining us and submitting your films. Congratulations, round of applause, please.